Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. We get a lot of interesting stuff sent our way.
We do.
And this one that we're going to dive into today, this is a really fascinating idea. And it might honestly completely flip the way you think about getting things done.
I love it already.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's this whole concept of achieving more by actually doing less.
Oh, yeah.
And it's all based on, you sent over this really thought-provoking material on this minimalist mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, our goal today is to kind of extract the core essence of that and then see how it can be a real game changer in both your work life, but also your personal life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's counterintuitive, isn't it? I mean, our culture has us thinking that we have to be busy all the time to be productive, to be successful.
Yeah.
But everything that you sent over, all these sources, they paint a really different picture.
Totally.
One where intentionality and subtraction, they can be powerful tools to really have focus and make a real impact.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think, right off the bat, let's ditch that image that people probably get in their heads when they hear minimalism. Like, stark white walls and, they only own a toothbrush.
Right.
Based on all this material, it's not about deprivation.
Yeah.
It's about making, like you said, really deliberate choices.
Yeah.
Identifying what truly matters to you.
Yes.
And then strategically clearing away, whether it's physical clutter, unnecessary tasks, maybe even, some draining commitments that you have to create space for those priorities to really flourish.
Yeah.
It's not about some aesthetic ideal, but about fostering authenticity.
Yes.
Boosting your creativity and just gaining genuine clarity.
Yes. I think you hit on a really key distinction there.
Yeah.
And this principle, it extends way beyond our homes, way beyond.
Totally.
And what's really compelling in these sources is how they apply this minimalist lens in the workplace. It goes beyond this surface level decluttering to a fundamental rethink. How we operate, how we achieve our goals professionally.
Okay, yeah, I'm really curious to dive deeper into that. I mean, workplace minimalism.
Right.
It almost sounds like an oxymoron, right?
It does.
Like in our hyper-connected, always-on work culture, it seems very strange.
Yeah.
But what the material is suggesting is that it's about bringing clarity of purpose and real efficiency to the forefront. Not just tidying your desk.
Right.
It's about, laser focusing on those high-impact activities and streamlining everything else to fuel creativity and innovation.
Yes, and the sources introduce this it's a unifying idea. They call it the Minimalism Quotient, or MQ.
Okay.
Think of it like the underlying operating system of a thriving organization.
I like that.
So, instead of directly chasing after these nebulous goals like better company culture or increased empathy.
Yeah, those are big, right?
Right.
Like, how do you even get there?
Right. The argument is that by building a strong foundational MQ, these desirable outcomes will naturally follow.
Okay, so MQ.
MQ.
Minimalism Quotient. This is really intriguing to me.
Yeah.
So how exactly does this act as the foundational operating system? Like, how does focusing on something called MQ actually translate into something as human-centric as empathy?
Right.
Or, even something as abstract as creativity?
Yeah.
It feels like there's some steps there, right?
It is fascinating. What's fascinating here is the interconnectedness.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take empathy. The constant influx of low-stakes information and all these demands on us.
Right.
They create a kind of cognitive tax.
Oh, wow.
And it drains our capacity for nuanced emotional processing.
Interesting.
But minimalism, by reducing this tax, by simplifying workflows and focusing on what's essential, it literally frees up neural resources.
Right.
The neural resources that are needed for genuine empathy, to truly understand the perspective and needs of colleagues and clients. You're not so bogged down in the trivial that you miss the significant human element.
Oh, that's a really insightful way to put it, that idea of a cognitive tax.
Right.
So by reducing the noise, you create the mental space for deeper human connection.
No.
Okay, so what about creativity and innovation?
Right.
Because the sources suggest that minimalism fosters that as well.
Yeah.
Which, again, isn't immediately obvious.
Right.
How does that work?
Okay, so think about it this way. When you eliminate the unnecessary tasks and distractions, you're not just freeing up time, you're freeing up mental bandwidth.
Okay.
It's like decluttering your physical workspace.
Yeah.
Suddenly, you can see the possibilities you couldn't see before.
Uh-huh.
By allowing employees to focus on fewer, more meaningful projects,
Yeah.
you enable deeper engagement.
Right?
And a greater likelihood of those innovative breakthroughs. Instead of trying to force creativity through, brainstorming sessions or whatever, minimalism cultivates the fertile ground for it to emerge organically from focused attention.
So it's about creating the conditions for those sparks of innovation to actually ignite and grow.
Exactly.
Rather than just demanding that they appear on the spot.
Exactly.
Which is what a lot of companies do.
Yes.
Okay, so efficiency feels like a more direct benefit of workplace minimalism,
Yeah.
Like cutting out the unnecessary processes, endless meetings that could have been emails. Like that seems like a very straightforward path to better productivity.
Absolutely. And a core tenet of minimalism is that ruthless prioritization of value.
Mm-hmm.
By constantly asking, does this activity truly contribute to our goals?
Yeah.
And eliminating what doesn't, you inherently drive efficiency. It's about maximizing output, not by increasing effort on everything, but by focusing effort on what truly moves the needle.
Okay, I like that. So the link to employee retention is really interesting to me because you're talking about less burnout, less confusion. I mean, in today's work environment, that's a huge factor.
Huge.
If people feel like their work has purpose and they're not being ground in just pointless tasks, they're surely more likely to stay.
Absolutely.
Right.
When employees experience clarity in their roles, when they understand their impact and aren't bogged down by unnecessary complexity, they feel more valued and less stressed. This translates directly into greater job satisfaction and a stronger desire to remain with the organization.
Of course.
And trust, which you mentioned earlier, really stems from that transparency and clarity.
Yeah.
When communication is streamlined and processes are easy to understand, it fosters a sense of openness and reliability.
Right, because it's hard to build trust when things feel really opaque and unnecessarily complicated.
Exactly.
So the central argument here is quite compelling.
Yes.
That by focusing on this underlying minimalism quotient, organizations can create this ripple effect that leads to a whole host of positive outcomes.
Right.
Rather than tackling each one in isolation.
It's a more systemic and potentially more sustainable approach to organizational improvement.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's pivot to our personal lives for a second.
Okay.
Because I think when most people hear minimalism, they probably first think about decluttering their homes,
Yeah, the physical stuff.
Right, right. But the material we looked at goes way deeper than that.
Much deeper.
Suggesting that it can lead to a more authentic, creative, and ultimately more fulfilling existence.
I would agree.
So how do you see that playing out?
So in our personal lives, a minimalist mindset encourages us to be so intentional about what we allow into our space. And I'm not just talking about physical possessions.
Right.
I'm talking about our time, our energy, and our relationships. Right. Authenticity arises when we shed the external pressures and the societal expectations that don't align with our core values and our passions. We gain the freedom to make choices that genuinely reflect who we are, rather than who we think we should be.
That's huge. That resonates with me so deeply. Just tuning out that external noise.
Yes.
And focusing on your own internal compass, so to speak.
Yes.
So how does this intentional shedding of the unnecessary unlock creativity in our personal lives?
So think about the mental clutter. That excess possessions and endless obligations can create.
Yeah.
It's like having, too many tabs open on your browser.
Totally.
Right.
I do that all the time.
Yeah, everything slows down.
Yeah.
By intentionally decluttering our physical and mental spaces, we free up that mental bandwidth for deeper thinking, imaginative exploration.
Okay.
Minimalism encourages us to engage with fewer things, but more deeply, allowing ideas to gestate and flourish.
So it's not about having less inspiration, but about having more focus and mental space to actually act on the inspiration.
Exactly.
Okay. And finally, the impact on mental clarity and overall well-being seems like a natural consequence of simplifying our lives.
Well,
right?
I would say so. Absolutely.
Like it makes sense.
When we reduce the number of possessions we own, streamlining our commitments, and consciously choosing how we spend our time, it directly reduces mental clutter. This leads to lower stress levels, improved sleep, and a greater sense of control.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and by creating space for quiet reflection and the things that truly bring us joy, we cultivate a deeper sense of well-being.
It's almost like creating this sanctuary in your own mind, in your own life.
Exactly.
Free from the constant bombardment of the unnecessary.
Yes.
Okay. So now for businesses who are intrigued by this whole idea of workplace minimalism, how can they actually gauge if it's making a difference?
Right.
Because the material introduces this concept of using key performance indicators,
Yes.
KPIs,
KPIs.
tailored to a minimalist approach.
Yes, and this is vital for demonstrating the tangible impact
Right.
of this mindset shift on business outcomes.
So how do we measure this? What are we looking at here?
Okay, so the sources outline 4 key minimalist KPIs.
Right.
First one is clarity of focus, which can be measured through a prioritization index.
Okay.
This looks at how effectively employees align their daily tasks with the overarching strategic goals of the organization,
Okay.
and how well they minimize distractions.
So are people actually spending their time on the activities that have the biggest impact?
Exactly.
But like, how might a company actually measure that?
Right. So it could involve analyzing time allocation data,
Okay.
conducting surveys to assess employees' understanding of priorities, or even tracking the completion rates of high-priority projects versus less critical tasks.
Interesting.
The goal is to see if efforts are truly aligned with what matters most for the business.
Got it. What's the second minimalist KPI a company could track?
Okay, that's the resource optimization ratio. So this KPI assesses how efficiently the organization utilizes all its resources, time, energy, budget, even physical materials, to achieve its objectives, with a strong emphasis on minimizing waste and redundancy.
So it's looking at things like the effectiveness of meetings,
Yes.
the amount of duplicated work across teams, or even, efficient use of office supplies.
Absolutely.
Like, are we being smart about how much paper we're using? Those sorts of things.
It's about maximizing output while minimizing input.
I like that.
Yeah. Identifying bottlenecks and areas of waste is key here.
Okay.
And then the third KPI is employee engagement through simplicity.
Right.
This measures the level of employee engagement and overall job satisfaction. That results from having clearer roles, streamlined workflows, and greater autonomy in their work.
So are employees feeling more empowered and less bogged down by unnecessary red tape?
That's a really good question.
It seems like that's, a really crucial indicator of a healthy and productive work environment.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what about the final minimalist KPI?
Okay, so the final one is the Creativity and Innovation Index.
Okay.
This aims to quantify the increase in creative problem solving, the generation of new ideas, and the adoption of innovative approaches within the organization as a direct result of this reduced mental and physical clutter.
Okay, but how can a company actually put a number on something like that?
That's a good question. It could involve tracking the number of new patents filed, the success rate of pilot projects based on novel ideas, or even conducting employee surveys that specifically ask about their perceived ability to think creatively and contribute innovative solutions.
Wow, so these KPIs are really fascinating to me because they really demonstrate how embracing less,
Yes.
less complexity, fewer distractions, more focused effort can actually lead to more of the things that drive success in any organization. Clarity, efficiency, engagement, and innovation.
Yes.
It's a really tangible way to actually see those benefits.
And they provide a framework for moving beyond these abstract concepts to actually measuring the real-world impact of a minimalist approach in the workplace.
Okay, so to bring it all together,
Yeah.
it seems that this idea of minimalism, while often misunderstood as just, tidying up or something like that,
Right.
it's actually a really profound and versatile principle
Absolutely.
with the potential to transform, like we said, both our professional and personal lives.
Yeah.
And it's about that really intentional focus
Yes.
on what truly brings value and meaning, and then consciously letting go of the distractions that hold us back
Absolutely.
from reaching our full potential.
I like that.
So, and the core message, it seems like, for organizations is to think about building that underlying minimalism quotient
Yes.
by fostering an environment that prioritizes clarity, purpose, and efficiency. Those other crucial qualities like empathy, creativity, and trust will naturally take root and flourish. Such a compelling perspective. So for you, our listener, As you've joined us on this deep dive into the minimalist mindset,
Yeah.
I leave you with this thought. Consider the different areas of your own life, both at work and at home. Where might a more intentional minimalist approach yield the biggest benefits?
Good question.
What clutter, whether it's physical possessions, endless to-do lists, or those draining commitments, might be hindering your focus, your creativity, or your overall sense of well-being? And what's one small intentional step you could take today to create just a little more space for what truly matters? Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening.